Should you focus on only one voiceover niche, or does narrowing it down to only one mean that you're limiting yourself? Should you go after as many voiceover niches as you can and just see what works? Or could a lack of direction hurt you? That is what we're going to talk about today on this episode of the podcast. Welcome back to the Voice Acting 101 podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and this is episode number 35. This is where I try to answer voiceover questions sent in by you. Now, before we get to today's question, I've got a quick question for you. Where are you in your voiceover journey? Maybe you're just getting started. Maybe you've been doing it for years. Either way, I created a free guide that goes into detail on the 5 steps that I think it takes to make it in voiceover. It's called the 5 Steps to Voiceover Success. It all starts with step 1, which is there to keep you from wasting your time. Then it moves on to the other steps like setting up your home studio, improving your voiceover skills, creating your demo, and then finally step 5, which is getting work every day. So I highly suggest you go download that. It's at voiceacting101.com/get started. It's going to show you what to do step by step. I love step-by-step guides myself. I think they're easy to follow. So I hope that you get it, and I hope that it helps you. It's at voiceacting101.com/get started. All right, let's get to the question that Christian sent in.
Hey there, Jason. My name is Christian. Love the podcast, man. Just wanted to send in a quick question, hoping you could reiterate on a topic, since it was a topic you touched on briefly. In the episode where you talked about things that you wish you could tell your younger self, number 1, being the last one, you said that you should only try to stick to niches that you're interested in because dipping your toe into everything could result in maybe being mediocre in some areas or many areas instead of excelling in the one area that you're good at or actually interested in. Now, I totally understand that, and I have no reason to doubt that. Obviously, you're far more experienced in this field than I am. However, when you said that, it piqued my curiosity on the subject because the way I originally came into voice work was with the mentality of, well, if I don't have much experience, therefore, in order to get experience, I should probably just get experience. Because after all, how could any experience, even if it's not exactly what I want to do, can't be a bad thing, can it? The field that I really want to get into is like doing voice, like characters and creatures, because I can do like weird growls and screeches and roars and stuff. So I really want to dabble into video games and like fantasy cartoons or whatever. That's what I really want to get into. But as someone who doesn't really have a lot of experience in voice acting to begin with, I feel like trying to break into that industry specifically with no experience prior, I feel like I'm just kind of a guy walking up to like NASA with a resume that has McDonald's and Sport Check on it. Do you know what I mean? So I guess my question is really broken into 2 parts, if I can do that. Number 1 being, as someone who wants to specifically do voice acting in the more like, creative and artistic ways of manipulating my voice, why not take a commercial job in the beginning? Why not take a student documentary film? Why not take those jobs that are out of my niche? And the other part of my question being, if I were to hone in on one type of niche, what exactly would be the best way to just kind of zero in on the type of work that I specifically want to be in?
All right, thanks for submitting your question, Christian. Love hearing other voices on the podcast. So Christian is referring to episode number 4, which covered a few things I'd tell my younger self. There's a link to it in the description if you want to go back and listen to it. And as mentioned, one of the things I brought up in that episode was a suggestion to focus on one voiceover niche to start. Now, this is something that I did in the beginning, and I didn't even really know I was doing it, and it worked really well for me. But then after that, I tried to do everything, and that didn't work out as well. So hopefully you can learn from this experience, and hopefully I can clear up exactly what I mean by pick one voiceover niche. So I'm going to start with the second question, which is, what's the best way to zero in on a specific niche that you want to work in? So when I say focus on one niche to start, it's mostly referring to how you spend the majority of your energy and your time and your resources. In the beginning of a voiceover career, you have little to no experience and you don't really know what you're going to be hired to do, but odds are you have an interest in one area more than the other areas. So for me, that was radio imaging, and for Christian, it sounds like that would be video games and character work. You have your own interest. That interest of yours is a great place to start your focus. It's probably what you're most excited about, and probably what you're most passionate about. It's a good starting point to focus on. So once you know what your interest is and what you want to focus on, here are some of the best things that you can do to narrow in on that one niche. Once you know your focus niche, I would study existing work in that niche and see what they're doing, see what's being hired, see who is doing the hiring, and just do a little bit of research on the niche itself. And then I would look for a coach or a mentor that specializes in that one niche. And they're going to be able to give you training and advice specific to your interest. And then when it comes to your demo, you want it to be the best it can be, obviously. So you'd want to work with a demo producer who is known for producing amazing demos within that niche. And they're going to know exactly what your ideal clients are looking for and hopefully include that on your demo. Then from there, you want to make sure that your website is focused. And that means having your website or at least having a landing page that is dedicated to a specific kind of work. Clients, I've seen this from time to time, they shouldn't have to sort through all kinds of words and demos on the website that have nothing to do with the type of work that they do. The experience that they have when they come to your website, it should feel like it's made just for them and exactly what they're looking for. And you do that by having your website focused on that one niche. Or, if you have several niches by chance, then you can have landing pages for each niche. And then from there, you're going to need to know where your ideal clients hang out. You're going to want to find them and start the relationships with them directly. And you want to use the language that they speak and their specific needs. Each niche kind of has its own terminology. So you're going to want to know that and just know where those people are and what they need, what they're looking for. Now, there's nothing wrong with going after different types of voiceover, but I've found that there is kind of like a power that comes from focusing all your energy toward becoming great at one thing at a time. So if you can focus on that one thing at a time, I think you'll see more results. And that's what I really meant by focusing on one niche. The majority of your time and the majority of your energy goes toward growing that one area. Now, jumping back to the first question, why not take a commercial job or a job outside of your niche in the beginning? I would say 100% you should take jobs outside your niche if they are presented to you and if they meet your standards. Just because you're focused on one area right now, it doesn't mean that you can't or that you shouldn't work outside your focus niche. In fact, you've really only picked your focus niche because it's what you're interested in. You don't know if you're going to be any good in it. You don't know if people are going to hire you in that niche, but it gives you a starting point. So that's why you pick it. But just know that you may end up being more successful or hired more often in another niche. It could even be one that you haven't even thought of yet. So that's when you would want to consider switching to or maybe even adding another niche. So you do need to try out other things. You want to see if there's something better. Otherwise, you're going to just be stuck doing the same thing your entire career, and that's not what you want. For me, I started with radio imaging back in the day, but now most of my work is for commercial and e-learning and narration. Those are the three big ones for me nowadays. And I do very little radio imaging, which is how I started. So just know you probably aren't going to be great at everything. Narrow in on what's working and try to do more of that. Online casting sites, they have projects coming in all the time. So they're a really good way to kind of casually test out the other niches and see if you like them, see if you get hired. And once you start getting hired, if you do see a trend, you may want to pivot your focus to that niche instead, because it's kind of like you have a little bit of a demand in that niche. So you kind of want to shift your focus a little bit. So I've kind of done that over the years. Here's a couple examples from my experience. For me, radio imaging, of course, that's where I started. But I noticed the trend even as I started with radio imaging. All of my radio imaging clients I noticed were either a pop station, alternative station, or a country music station. But I noticed I wasn't being hired for jazz or classic rock or news or R&B stations. No matter how hard I tried, I just wasn't breaking through the door of those kinds of radio stations. So instead of wasting effort, I just said, okay, I'm only going to market to the pop stations, the alternative stations, and the country stations, since that's where I was seeing success. So the niche was radio imaging, and I focused even more on the station formats that were working best for me. Another example from my own experience is audiobooks. So I've recorded hundreds of audiobooks over the years, and I would estimate that of all the books I've ever worked on, probably around 90% would fall into the personal development category. So those are the kind of books that I get booked for. So looking at that trend, that shows me that if I go after audiobooks, I have a better chance at landing the books that are in the personal development category. So the work that you get, that's going to tell you where your focus should be. So if you don't have any work right now And especially when you're doing any kind of marketing, it helps to be focused and just narrowed in on the one niche where the majority of your time is going toward improving that one area and becoming the best that you can be and marketing specifically to that one type of client. You're going to know everything you need to know about that one niche, and you're going to become an expert in that niche. But all that said, it is fine to test out other niches as you go and just see if you have success in other areas. Eventually, you're going to have several focus niches, but you'll also know the niches that don't deserve your time, at least not yet, not right now. Maybe in a couple years, you can try it again. Wherever you have the most success, that is where your focus should be. And this way, you're going to increase your odds of getting more work, and you're going to reduce the time that you spend chasing projects or clients that you don't have a chance to work with. So, in summary, I would say pick one niche to start, focus on being the best in the niche. It's fine to test the waters in other niches, and make sure that you're open to change direction if you start seeing a trend. I hope that clears it up. All right, before you go, I've got a question for you. If you could only work in one voiceover niche, which one would it be? Each, of course, has pros and cons, but which one would you pick? Let me know in the comments below. Also, of course, if you have a question for the podcast, I would love to hear it. You can upload your voiceover question at voiceacting101.com/ask. That's it for this episode. I will talk to you next time. Have a great week. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of the podcast. If you want to see another video, there's one waiting for you right here, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel down in the corner. Or if you want to learn the 5 steps to becoming a voice actor, check out this free guide. It's available to download from voiceacting101.com/get started. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you next time. See ya.